Well, hey, it's Sean P. Neal, the host here at Fringe, and I am so excited to bring you this episode of Lead the People. Now, Lead the People provides you with a roadmap to realizing your full potential as an authentic people leader. And in each episode, Dr. Matt Pepssel, aka the godfather of talent optimization, well, he and his guests are going to explore a wide range of leadership topics and trends. And it's going to be really informative, and I promise you it will be engaging. So I don't want to hold you back any longer. Make sure you get everything you can out of this episode. It'll be packed full of great stuff. Let's get into it.
It's time to lead the people. The show for aspiring leaders at every level. If you want to boost your self-confidence, get noticed, and maximize your impact by leading others, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Matt Pepssel. Ready to lead? Follow me. My very special guest today is a husband, father, people, and idea person. He helps energize people and teams through reframing stress, overcoming strengths, and cultivating connection. He's been to 50 countries, worked with leaders on every inhabited continent, and hopes to get to Antarctica someday. He is Chris Failla. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you so much. I love great cadence, and what a beautiful way to launch into that introduction. I love being here.
It's so easy for me to be energetic because I'm talking to you. We've had such great conversations before about all kinds of different things, and you were gracious enough to give me a coaching session a couple weeks, I guess maybe a couple months ago at this point. So I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time.
Same here. So yeah, thank you for the joy being here.
I want to get us started with this. How in the world did you visit so many countries during the course of your work? 50 countries. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite thing. So I just learned this a few weeks ago, actually, that apparently Saint Christopher is the patron saint of traveling. Oh. So apparently there's something that's always been in my field or in my bones. But for years, for the last 20 years or so, I've been involved in community development work, and mostly in a nonprofit context. So I've worked with a lot of very mission-driven people, but I've been able to experience the gifts and the beauty embedded in other cultures. And that's what's shaped a lot of my worldview and really my value system. So it's been through service, through cross-cultural and intercultural service. And it's been an adventure and a half.
Yeah, in my book, I write about the 3 B's. I call them the killer B's of being, belonging, something bigger than myself, things we all want. Sounds like you were tapped into that bigger than myself at a very early age.
Yeah, almost overwhelmingly so. And it's almost like I can never go back. Yeah, it's been a ride.
That's the one challenge about a North Star like that is once you see it, you can't unsee it. You got to honor it.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, I love that. It's like it's this thing that simultaneously like summons us and sources us. You know, it's a North Star and an anchor at the same time. And sometimes you feel stuck between. Sometimes you just want it to like turn down a little bit. But
yeah, can we chill out with this?
Exactly. No. But it's so powerful. Yeah.
That's kind of related to this next one, which is that I love a good personal mission statement. And you have one that you feature. I think I grabbed yours off your website, which is to create healing and healthy spaces where people are seen, known, and strengthened so that together we can know the freedom and joy of being loved. I want to break that down. I want to talk first, if we can. When we talk about healing and healthy spaces, what does that mean?
Oh, wow. Beautiful question. I think it means that really all of us have an opportunity to show up in a way that that can either kind of leave a trail of carnage through our lack of self-awareness or through our fear or our mistrust, or we can be and kind of weird story, but I once had a friend describe me in an unsolicited way. He described me as a walking jar of healing balm. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I can live up to that, but thank you. But essentially it's this sense that all of us are longing for wholeness, right? All of us are longing for integration, and every interaction is an opportunity to move closer to that or move further from it. And so I see my role as much as possible to live that, but also to facilitate it through the way I show up to others.
Wow. I love that a lot. And I think that what's amazing is creating healing and healthy spaces. Clearly, we're talking a lot in this podcast about the workplace.
Yeah.
I know, and you mentioned a trail of carnage. at different phases in my career and even on different days, sometimes I leave carnage and sometimes I create those healing and healthy spaces. So it's not like a universal. I will say that I hope that at this advanced stage of my career, I get better at trying to have more healing and healthy spaces. But
Yeah.
I really like how you put that.
Yeah. Thank you. I have no doubt that that's how, I mean, yeah, I've seen, right?
Oh,
I've
there
read
you go.
this. This is basically a guidebook, right?
Yeah, Chris has got
To
the book up. He's ready
I,
to go. I love it.
yeah, to creating healing and healthy spaces. I think that one of the things I'm noticing this movement, and you're a leading voice in this conversation, but it's so beautiful that there are leaders realizing the healing capacity of the workplace, where
Mm.
we spend so much time and have such intimate potential for intimate relationships. So what if we could use that to create and cultivate these healing spaces? And the workplace is ready for it. Us humans are ready for it. So I guess the question is, are our organizations ready for it?
Well, they better be. And I think the reality is that everybody goes to work. So we're starting to see a lot of shifting when it comes to traditional institutions. Communities have changed, the nature of relationships. Even, you have strangers in your own building in New York that you don't make eye contact with. Like a lot of
Yeah,
these things have fallen apart, and
yeah,
much less politics and religion. We don't even have to talk about that stuff. But I
yeah,
think that the reality is everybody goes to work. And
yeah.
before we used to talk about, well, we have an opportunity to make our workplaces healing and healthy spaces. I say now we have an obligation. The reality is we
Mm,
ask so much for our work from our workers. I think if we're not teaching our leaders to create those healing and healthy spaces, it's actually a failure of our mission. And
yeah.
so I'll get off
Well
my
said.
soapbox, but
No, stay on the soapbox as long as you want. Yeah, that's powerful. I wanted to say amen. Yeah,
there you go. So that was the first part of your mission statement, was all about to create healing and healthy spaces. But the
yeah.
second part is just as intriguing, which is where people are seen, known, and strengthened. What does it mean to be seen, known, and strengthened?
I'm still learning that, but what I've experienced of it and experimented with so far is, I think it's what we're all longing for, right? It's those three B's that you're talking about. It's that sense of that I as a human matter, that I bring value, and that value is seen. I'm sure, I don't know how many of your listeners have watched the second installation of the Avatar movie, right? The Way of Water, but that whole thing of I see you, right? And there's this depth to that scene. We all really want to be, or at least from people, by people that we trust, by people that we're safe with, we want to be seen and known. And so the more that we can be those people that see the value, that see the importance, the significance of the person right in front of us, that in and of itself is strengthening. And I think that's, at least for me, that's what I find myself really longing for. And my favorite people are the ones that have modeled that for me, given me that gift of seeing me and allowing me to be fully known. That's been a lot of my healing journey.
Huge. What you just said there is so important too, Chris. And when I think about like in the workplace where my listeners come at me from, and where I certainly have just naturally gravitated to, we spend all day on Zoom, we spend all day in meetings if we're still in the office, whatever it might be. You could sit through an entire meeting with gobs of other people and never feel like you were really seen.
Yeah.
And it's because you just mentioned the wholeness. It's seeing the whole person. We're not just talking about the business and the numbers and all this kind of stuff, but basically recognizing that this is a human endeavor, business is.
Mhm.
And we have real people with full lives that are showing up into the workplace. And if we act like that's not the case and we keep it like super transactional, then
Yeah.
we're not seeing one another and we're missing out on that opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I love, and to go back to what you said before, I think it's becoming an obligation, right? Not just an opportunity to really everything as simple as, how's your dog? I heard that your dog was sick and that you had to put it down, or you know what I mean? How are you doing with that? Like we have these assumptions that people can compartmentalize so well. The reality is that's incredibly draining to try to compartmentalize these things that we all carry, this emotional weight, these griefs, these, on a small scale to a large scale, and to act like that's not affecting our capacity, or to try to disregard it and just go on with business as usual. That's not sustainable.
Yeah, I find that the way that we teach leaders to lead, we focus so much on the technical and the operational bits, we tend to dehumanize the work. And
Yeah,
because we're looking for precision, we're looking for control and consistency and profitability and all these things.
yeah,
But the reality is that we need to rehumanize the work. And
yeah,
I think that now when you start to open that door, like you said, of, hey, you seem a little low energy today. What's going on? You can tell me
yeah,
about anything. Like it'll help me. I would love to know. Those kinds of
exactly.
things. Then
Yeah,
you open the door to those relationships and that type of seeing and knowing that you've been chatting about here.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's, yeah, and even being the type of leader that has enough others awareness to pay attention to that. right? Some of us are so self-absorbed and self-consumed by our own pressures, our own responsibilities, that we don't even notice, right? When a little tear starts to form in someone's eye, when someone else maybe says something that resonates for them, or maybe there's, so do we even notice the nuance and the contours of somebody's world? And that has to do with slowing down, right? Paying attention and being fully present. But so often we're just moving so fast, or we're so self-focused that we don't even notice those little opportunities, right, to lean in and invite somebody to be seen.
I can't even imagine how many years it took me to learn that. I was so robotic in my approach,
Mm,
both because of my family upbringing, German heritage, Marine Corps service, whatever. It was like work, 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 robot, robot. It took me years to unwind all that and to really allow myself to be human, much less to have the I don't want to say courage, but have the motivation to really be invite others to be human with me. And
yeah.
boy,
Wow.
I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that work. It comes through in how you show up. And
Well, where have you been, Chris? It's been 20 years. What the
yeah.
heck? I should have met you. What were you doing in '99? Come on.
Right. I was probably being the same way as you, my man.
I think it's probably true. I think I was at Harvard Business School the first time I heard about Ubuntu, which is this
Mm,
African concept, and they talked about the greeting being like, "I'm here to be seen," and the other person responds, "And I see you." And so
mm,
I think you're really onto something with this being seen. I think we really take it for granted sometimes, like, "Oh no, I saw them. They were here." No, no, no. Really see them.
mm.
Like
Yeah.
there's something about that word and the deeper meaning of it that I that moment stuck with me when I first learned about that philosophy of Ubuntu. Is so
Yeah.
so
I,
beautiful.
I love that, Matt. Yeah, that's one of the biggest gifts that I was given in all those travels. Going back to the first question you asked me, was there was just this different pace, this different cadence, this different value system, and all these majority world cultures that I would experience. Whether I was in Africa or South America, I the first time I was in Chile, I've been back to Chile 8 times because I just fell in love with that place, the way they live, the way they love, the way they think. And one of the things I loved about it is I never once felt like an interruption.
Mhm.
And that was a tremendous gift. And so one of my core values is to never make another human feel like they are an interruption to me. And like it gets me emotional to even think about the power of that, right? Somebody stopping whatever task they're focused on to just, and of course there are boundaries and there's appropriate, right? I'm not talking about like lack of social courtesy,
Right.
but just that sense of like, you are more important to me than this thing that I can come back to in 20 minutes. And I'm going to show you that with my presence, with my focus. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's very similar to that Ubuntu idea. And I love that.
Well, and pro tip for people who are sort of listening in, put away your phone, close your laptop, like whatever's going on, just turn your body toward the person to
Yeah,
really let them know subliminally that, you're there and
yeah,
100% there and not somewhere else as best you can. And not waiting for your turn to talk. You're just active listening. Like there's so many simple techniques that we just take for granted because like you said, the self-absorption, the mind is going, I'm behind on this email. I got to do this thing. It's like
yeah.
time out. This is such a rare opportunity you have with this person who's across from you and looking to be seen, looking to be known. It's
Yeah.
just little goes a long way, man.
It does, man. And it's so, I mean, so I love that I get to be involved in high level leadership, mostly right now with construction companies, high level GCs and things like that. And I remember a conversation just from a few weeks ago of the CEO of this company when we were talking about what's the biggest shift or thing that's changed everything for you from our 13 weeks together. And he said, this has changed everything, and yet it's so simple. I don't know why I didn't think about it before. And we're like, okay, this is going to be some big idea, right? And he's like, when people come into my office, I step out from behind my computer and I go and sit at the table and I invite them to sit with me. And we simply sit at the table together and I remove all barriers and I remove all distractions. And he's like, ironically, that has made everything even more productive, more efficient, because we don't have to have the same conversation 5 other times because I didn't miss details. And they walk away feeling so valued and energized because I was fully present to them. I was like, imagine that, right? That it could
Yeah.
be as simple as stepping out from behind your desk and showing up face to face.
Yeah.
What a gift. And at the same time, the fact that we're even talking about that as some, new idea is pretty telling as well.
Well, it definitely is. And let's just get more tables, whether they're literal tables, whether they're, metaphorical tables. It's like
Uh,
find that dedicated space where it's like there's nothing between us. We're literally here. And
yeah.
I mentioned the dehumanization of work, and I think that unfortunately Zoom has done that because
Mm,
you don't always know when somebody's in a meeting, like if they're feeling really behind, and right now everybody's feeling really behind, Are they kind of slipping away, tapping away on Slack or email or Microsoft Teams or whatever? You hate to see that. It's
Yeah.
happening. And you're just like, oh, this is just
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not.
And sorry for, I hope I wasn't interrupting there, but yeah, one of the things that we really, I'm a part of a team called Lighthouse Institute. And one of the things that we really try to advocate and model is at the beginning of every meeting, declare intent and why are we here and how much of you is here. And part of that conversation of declaring intent is there anything that would stop you from being fully present? So that we all know, right? Because how many times you see somebody and you're kind of wondering, and then it takes up mental bandwidth and kind of redirects the energy of the conversation or, the emotion of it. So even just being able to ask, is there any reason why you couldn't be fully present? Okay, would you like 2 minutes to go take care of that real quick and then come back and show back up? But that right there has been such a game changer in giving people permission, right? To go tidy something up, tie up a loose end, but then come back and show up fully present. Everything goes faster that way and it's more enjoyable.
Hugely. And as the leader, you're modeling that behavior when you go first and you basically say, hey team, thanks so much. Glad we're meeting. Just want you to know, I think I slipped my back last night and I did not sleep very well at all. So I'm fighting through it. I just want you to know that. But just if you have to find yourself repeating something for me, thanks. I really appreciate that. People are like, oh, next time they may be more likely to be like, well, I have this other thing. I'm behind, a deadline shifted and I got this client thing right after this meeting. So that's how I'm showing up for you today. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great example. And is your back okay? Was that a hypothetical or?
Total hypothetical.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
I slept like a baby last night, Chris. It's unbelievable.
I love that.
I wanted to be my freshest for our conversation right now.
I can tell you are. I love it.
Hey, you. I'm an ambitious guy, and there's a lot I want to get done. Between my full-time job, my family, writing on LinkedIn, and my podcast, I didn't have much extra time. So I tried a bunch of productivity systems and tools. You know what I'm talking about. To-do list apps, life hacks, special journals and calendars. I tried them all. No matter what I did, I felt like I was falling further behind. One day, I totally blanked on a book interview. I forgot to put it in my calendar. That's when I decided to get some help. I hired a virtual assistant from Squared Away. Michelle Penzak is a military spouse. She became a virtual assistant. You may recognize her name from my book, Expand the Circle. Well, Michelle was so good that she co-founded a company that connects busy business professionals like me with military spouses like her. Now, my assistant, Victoria, she is amazing. She's helping me with my social media posts, appointment scheduling, and so much more. She's based in the Midwest, and she works U.S. hours. If I need anything outside of our weekly one-on-one, she's always just a Zoom meeting, a phone call, or a text away. So I know that you're busy, but don't be a hero. Instead, hire a real hero spouse to help you get squared away. To learn more, visit GoSquaredAway.com. That's GoSquaredAway.com. And tell them I sent you. Now, let's get back to the show. Well, I'll move this on to this one, which is talking about the last part of your mission statement. Yeah, and I ask you about working with clients who maybe aren't feeling what you said earlier or in that personal mission statement, which was about feeling freedom and joy. If they're not feeling freedom and joy, before we talk about what we can do about it, what does that typically look like?
Oh, wow. So there's a whole spectrum there, right? Of feeling freedom and joy. I used to think that was kind of the goal for everybody. And then I realized not necessarily. Some people, we just need to get them back to neutral. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of my work has kind of shifted of, I do my best to always come from that place of freedom and joy. I do a lot of work to show up from that place and model it and kind of bring a space of possibility for that, while also being sensitive to some people just need to get a couple notches higher, you know what I mean, on the emotional spectrum. Mm-hmm. And if we try to, most people can't go from burnt out to joyful, you know what I mean? Like it's almost jarring to even try to do that. But I think ultimately, right, we all want whatever our version of freedom is and our deep version of joy. But I think it has to do with, being present enough to people, paying attention to their value system and modeling that, inviting it, creating permission, right? And so I think that those are all things that follow up from that being seen, known, and summoned and strengthened. That freedom and joy, I think, is a byproduct of that. Mm-hmm.
Those show up in my work too. I think that at my advanced age, I'm sure you can see my gray whiskers coming in. I've learned to follow that joyous energy. And
Yeah.
when I'm naturally turned on by something, or I see somebody else lights up at something that's in their world, I'm
Yeah.
quick to call that out, because I
Yeah.
feel like those are signals that, you've tapped into a live wire here. Something's really
Yes.
naturally good for you, which is great.
Yeah.
And this concept of freedom has been with me for as long as I can remember. I've always really gravitated towards this concept of liberty. I love the
Mhm.
Revolutionary War theme in the United States as a history. And I just love the idea, so much so that my own personal mission statement is something similar to: I teach leaders to liberate themselves from outdated attitudes and behaviors that
Mm.
prevent them from realizing their full potential. Now,
Wow.
the liberation in there is really important to me, because I do feel like we create our own imprisonment in many ways, because we
Yes.
don't train our minds properly to handle the inevitable changes that we see in the workplace, as an example, or the sort of the fear that naturally we're kind of wired for survival. I won't go into it, but I think that the idea of being able to drop those heavy bags and liberate yourself from a lot of the self-imposed constraints, and to be others interested, as you said earlier,
Yeah.
boy, it just feels so great. I wish
Yeah.
I could give that magic wand and give that gift to every doggone leader in the world, just to be
Right.
like, everything gets easier when we liberate ourselves in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that yeah, I love your mission statement. I love the way you talk about that because yeah, the things a good friend of mine is an Olympic gold medal snowboarder. And she was talking about, she's experienced the one of the pinnacles of joy as a human, human achievement to win an Olympic gold medal. And yet at the same time, kind of letting me into the dark side of some of that experience and some of that. And she was just talking about the way that we carry all these things through life that weigh us down, whether they are, mindsets and self narratives or wounds and trauma from the past, things from the past. But to be liberated from that weight, what that also does is it frees us up to see other people. And so all these things are self-reinforcing, right? It's like we're not talking about a sequential thing. We're talking about a self-reinforcing system here of I get liberated, I can see you better. You are seen, you start to experience liberation. And it just all of these things, it creates this positive spiral
Yeah.
that I want to be a part of and I want to be a catalyst of.
So huge. And the reason that I'm so excited about having, started this podcast back when I did, as well as all the other things I try to do, is because there's no owner's manual when it comes to
Mhm.
leadership. There's no
Yeah.
YouTube video. You can't just Google, like, how do I make all these self-reinforcing things possible in my life? So we're trying to demystify a little bit of this. So when you hear people like Chris and myself who've been around the block a little bit here, we're trying to share what's worked for us, because we know it'll work for you too.
Yeah.
And I think that, Chris, even you and I have a lot of work to do to try to make the on ramps to this type of successful leadership that much easier. But, hey, in bite-sized chunks, this is what we're trying to do.
Right, absolutely. And listening to this podcast, right, it is one of those on ramps. Like just knowing where those. I love what you talked about, right? The live wire, that spark of joy. One of the things that I really try to pay attention to, I actually have a post-it note underneath my monitor, right underneath you, purple, that it's appropriate. It's on brand with Matt, and it says, "Am I having fun right now?"
Mm,
And that's a simple barometer for me of do I want to continue in this, like is this where I want to be right now, and what kind of presence, what kind of energy do I want to bring to it. And so I don't even remember honestly what got me there, but just thinking about, like, for us, so much of our journey towards that liberation is by having permission to follow those live wires. What voices light me up, you know what I mean? What relationships ignite me, and what relationships are past their time, which ones have expired and can hit their expiration date in
mhm.
my life that I need to move on from. That's tough, but it's super important, I think, to pay attention, right, to the way our energy ebbs and flows and how our joy ebbs and flows, and lean into that.
Yeah, and you're talking about a process of discovery. So we didn't like come and begin our leadership career picking up on things like live wires and joyous energy. But when you notice it and you start to say, that's pretty interesting. I think I should remember that. I write it down, put it on a post-it note.
Yeah.
During the coaching session I referenced earlier that you and I had, you had me write a post-it note as well. And mine was, it's going to sound ridiculous because it's totally out of context, but I wrote in, how deep is your love? How deep is your love?
Mm,
Because you were coaching me about how to, where was I feeling in my body? Like, where's my awareness? And I'm a very cerebral person. I'm always lost in my thoughts. So I was very high. And you
mhm,
had helped coach me down into getting that awareness, like, further deeper into my body.
mhm.
And to me, it was like, what connects when I'm doing those things? And it really connects to this core of what I call love. Because to me, leadership is love. And
Yes.
so when I said, how deep is your love? It's like, how kind of in your body are you getting? How far down are
Mm,
you pushing this awareness so that you can really connect and be present for not just yourself, but for those around you? And so I'll come back to the core of that. That was kind of a little detour, but when I say leadership
Perfect.
is love, boy, that does not always land well in the workplace.
Yeah.
Certainly not in the Marine Corps. We didn't talk about that a lot.
Oh no, who are these hippies?
Who are these hippies? But I think that to me, I really all I see is unity when I'm at my best, and when I start
Mm,
to think about leadership as love, I really fundamentally believe that. But I think what my question for you is like, what is it about this concept of this word when we bring it into the world of work that makes us squeamish sometimes in that
mm.
context?
Oh wow. How deep do you want to go? I love that you either remembered or still have that post-it note, because that was I loved that conversation with you. And yeah, what is it about that word? I mean, I think anybody that would say that they don't want to be more loved or experience more love or to give more love, I think they would be delusional, right? And they'd be speaking from wounding, not from their core essence. And I don't know. I think that we hold these false dichotomies, right? That love can be productive, that love is going to make us soft, and that we're not going to be able to make the hard decision as a leader or whatever it is. I found the opposite, that things just go so much better when I put love first, and then results follow. And when I try to lead from results and then kind of like squeeze in a little bit of love where possible, usually A, there's no room, and B, it doesn't really work. So I don't know if I really answered your question, but I think we're afraid that the love will make us soft. It'll slow us down in an unhealthy way. Um, and that it'll kind of take us off mission. But I think the opposite happens when we really have a full picture of what love is.
Yeah, I think you have to do the hard work first about aligning the human effort with the mission. It has to be a worthy mission. Like I said, you have to scratch those needs of being belonging bigger than myself when it comes
Yeah.
to the people doing work. I talked to somebody earlier today that was like, my company has this focus on financial metrics and it feels gross. And you're like, oh my gosh,
Uh,
somebody skipped some steps, right? And
right.
so, yeah, but when you've done that and you're like, okay, look, we're going to ask a lot of you. We're in this together. We're going to help and support you, but we're going to work hard. Like all of a sudden, love becomes easier because love then becomes the vehicle, like the
Yeah.
caring, the showing up, the seeing, the knowing, all the things we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And I think that you got to put some label on it. We don't have to go around loving each other. I get it, but I think the concept is there. It's
Yeah.
genuine care, it's
Yeah.
empathy, compassion, these
Yeah.
things, and
Connection, commitment.
huge,
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah.
right? And the results will follow. I love the way you said that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true.
Well, it's funny. I'll give you a quick example. So, I one of the clients I'm working with, he's VP of a large construction company, and he was having some challenges with one of his direct reports. And it's because this direct report is going through a really, really challenging personal situation right now. And so it's that paradox, right? He posed it as a problem, but one of the things that I try to help people see is that usually as a leader, we're dealing more with polarities and paradox than we are problems. And so making that distinction and seeing that, look, this isn't an issue of do you value him as a human or do you get him to do his work? It's yes.
Hmm.
But what was funny is in the conversation, he said 3 or 4 times in the matter of a couple minutes and didn't even realize it. He said, I love the guy. It's just that. I'm serious. I'm telling you, I love the guy. It's just that. And he said that over and over and over without even noticing. And we're like, and me and my co-coach, we stopped and we're like, did you hear what you just said? And he was like, what? And he didn't even, and so we told him, you just said you loved him 4 times. And we're like, does he know that? And the client was like, wow, I've never even thought about like, and so he's like, it might feel awkward for me to actually tell him in that way. So we coached him around, well, how can you communicate that affection, that commitment to him that you're feeling? Like, what are you really trying to say in a way that is appropriate for you to convey? Because if he knows that, you can have whatever other conversation you need to have. It's
Right.
setting that container makes room for everything else that we call a tough conversation. And it makes it not as tough.
Huge. And I think that it's always about balance, right? If we
Yeah.
go full results, but no love, even within our own families, even
Yeah.
with a partner, a spouse, with kids, probably even pets. I don't know. It's like if we get the ratios wrong, then it doesn't work out so well. Like
Yeah.
every time I can think back when I was a younger person, having younger kids, it's really hard to be fully invested in, their interests or whatever it was. Sometimes because you're busy, you're doing work, you're tired,
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, when you be about like, hey, we need to talk about results, whether it's school or housekeeping or whatever,
Yeah.
And then it's like, whoa, where's the love? You just got
Yeah.
home and I'm looking for love and you're talking to me about results because you're still
Yeah.
in work mode. It's like,
Right.
it's everywhere, everywhere. So
Yeah.
break it down, embrace the love. You don't worry about your results. They'll actually get better. You think they
Yeah.
won't, but they'll get better. It's just how
It's
it is.
it's so true. I'm gonna play off of that real quick if I may,
Yeah, please.
because I think I love that you included the word belonging, and I know that in Expand the Circle you talk a lot about belonging. And initially, so I'm writing a book right now because you actually got me in the cohort that
Right.
that got the process going, and I'm super grateful for that. And initially, I was going to write the book about stress and self care. And then I realized, wait a minute, one of the reasons that self care doesn't really happen is because we think about it in an over individualized way. But if you emphasize belonging, self care follows. But if you emphasize self care, it doesn't stick.
Mm,
And I really think, right, if I deeply believe and I feel a sense of conviction that I belong to you, I will take care of myself because I'm also taking care of me for you.
right.
Whereas if I have this, abstract notion that I need to do self-care because that's what I'm supposed to do, I'm going to either feel guilty or I'm going to be afraid that you're judging me or feel that I'm selfish or right. It's going to create this tension. So I love that emphasis on belonging. And then ironically, like you've discovered and like you talk about, results in performance and commitment follow that sense of belonging, and self-care naturally self-resolves.
Mhm.
So it's really about right setting that container of love. Results happen within the context of love, but results brought without that container of love result in alienation, right? Separation, frustration. It's counterproductive. It backfires. And
Totally counterproductive. And I love the way that you frame that. And I think words matter. And sometimes when we think about, I like to say self care is never selfish because self care is in pursuit of being at your best to serve others and to
yeah,
fulfill and show up the way you want within that context of love or work, relationship, whatever it is you want.
yeah.
The only thing that's selfish is self interest, like
Mhm.
exclusively. And even at the expense of others, that's where it gets, you got to watch out for that stuff, of course. But I
Yeah.
think more people are like, well, I want to make sure everybody else's needs are met. I see this with healthcare workers. I see this with HR
Mhm.
professionals. I see this with parents. I see it all the time where I deplete myself and I can't fully show up because I don't want to be seen as selfish, which nobody
Yeah.
was ever going to anyway.
Yeah.
Or I'm so maniacally focused on everybody else's needs, but I don't take care of myself. And ironically, I'm watering down my ability to serve their needs. It's like
Yeah.
time out, self care, not selfish.
Yeah.
Get yourself to 100%, and that way you can show up fully for us, and that's what we want for you.
Yeah. Exactly. Matt, can I tell you an embarrassing story?
Yeah, please. Those are my favorites.
I want to be sensitive to our time, but I was down at a conference about 10, 11 years ago. I had just moved back from China. I lived in China for 5 years and had just moved back for health reasons. And I was at a conference and there was a lady speaking on storytelling. Her name was Bobette Buster, and she's a film professor at University of Southern California. She's on stage at this breakout session with one of my leadership coaches, a guy named Shane Hips. And Bobette launches into this room with 100 leaders um, about what's the most difficult thing about leadership. She asked the whole room this: what's the hardest thing about leadership? The answer came back: self-care. And she said, okay, well, why is self-care so hard? And everybody's like, well, we want to make an impact. We want to make a difference. And when you pause and slow down for self-care, it feels like you're not making a difference. And she said, okay, fair enough. So what happens when you go too long without adequate self-care? And everybody's like, well, you start to, fizzle out, you start to burn out. And she says, okay. And then what happens once you burnt out? And nobody really had, you could feel the awkwardness, the
Mhm.
silence in the room. And she said, when you burn out, you've become a burden. And then what kind of impact have you made?
Mhm.
And you could hear a pin drop in that room. And I'm sitting there having just moved back from China, health issues because of A, lack of self-care, B, environmental factors. And I'm literally experiencing this burdenness of coming back and trying to like regroup and needing resources outside of myself. And that I will never forget that that approach was a little tough, right?
Yeah, right?
But it was such a wake-up call of what are we really for, and what happens when. So I like to try to reframe stress for people, and self-care around stress doesn't mean like you're not stressed because you're inadequate. You're stressed because you care. And the invitation is to actually include yourself more in all of that caring that you do.
Mm.
And so self-care isn't caring less, right? For others, it's actually just expanding the, hey, I didn't even mean to say it that way, expanding the circle of care to include yourself in it.
Yeah, and I always in the book toward the end, big spoiler is that I talk a lot about this equation of enlightened leadership capacity, and I talk about self-interest. Self-interest should never be less than one. You know, you need to be whole and full and complete. But when it starts to get to be more than one, all of a sudden we're starting to water down the results we're getting from
Mm,
others. But I see that that doesn't happen in my experience. It happens on some notable exceptions. But in more of my experience, people aren't fully taking care of themselves. They're not taking that beat. They're becoming a burden. They're
yeah,
watering down their result,
yeah,
right? And that's what we want to make sure that people know it's okay to take a day for yourself. And when you do, tell your team that's why. Say, I'm feeling a little burned out. You know, I've been going at it pretty hard for us. And I'm going to take this afternoon. I'm going to take it off. And then all of a sudden, again, that's leading by example.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right. Giving ourselves permission to plug back in, to recharge, to show up with a full tank, and even knowing, I think it's so important for leaders to do the work to excavate and reflect on what does fill your tank. You know, I think we have all these things that we see um, around us that we maybe assume are these kind of default things that we just slide into. But the reality is that there's it's super super important to know who are the people, right, that reignite you, that refill you, that replenish you. What are the who are the thinkers, right? What are the environments? What are the spaces? What does it look
Yeah.
like for you to rest? Are you an active rester? Are you a passive rester? So there's just so much there. That self-awareness, right, goes a
Yeah.
long way.
Get back to that, replenish that source of joyous energy. I love it. And I
Exactly.
love also that you just had shared the example of coming back from China because I wrote a game for you. You ready for this game? It's a guessing game, and I call it Where in the World. Now, I noticed that you had visited more than 50 countries. So in this game, I'm going to ask you three trivia questions related to world geography.
Oh,
Chris had
okay.
no idea
Oh
this was
no.
coming. This is my favorite part of the show. So it's super simple. We're going to try this one here. How about this? Which transcontinental country across Europe and Asia spans 11 time zones?
Wow.
It's a big old country.
Would that be Russia?
It is absolutely Russia. Ding, ding, ding. See, I knew you'd be great at these.
Putting the ball on the tee for
Yeah,
me
there
with
you
that
go.
one.
How about this one? Home to the Sangoana, the crest-tailed mulgara, and the southern marsupial mole, the Great Victorian Desert is located in what massive country?
Hmm. Marsupial mole in the Victorian desert.
Yep.
Huh. I'm gonna have to take a guess here with this one. I'm gonna say like Mauritania or Morocco.
It's actually bigger. It's Australia. Australia is
Oh,
massive.
marsupial.
Yeah.
Duh.
There you go. Right there.
Yeah, come on.
This
That
one
one.
I think you've probably been to before. How about this? Lake Como and Lake Garda are both located in which southern European country? Lake Como.
Lake Como.
Lake
Is that
Como.
Italy?
It is Italy. Ding, ding, ding. There you go. See, like it's
Got
world
me
traveler.
sweating, Matt.
Well,
I just got back from Italy and I loved it. My last name is actually Sicilian, Failla, and it means spark or sparky.
look at
And
that.
it was I haven't been to Sicily yet, but it was amazing to be in Italy and like my people. I just the dolce vita, right?
Yeah,
That
that's right.
sweetness of life.
The
Yeah.
sweetness of life. There you go. Well, the next question.
Thank you for testing me.
Yes, yes. It's always just it's just something different. You know, we have to be authentic. And I had had my show on for a long time, and I said it's missing something. And I just like
Hmm,
to have I like to write games that are on theme for my guests. So
I love it.
thankfully, the last question I have for you is so much easier. Where can my listeners go to learn more about you, Chris?
Yeah. I would love if they want to, yeah, further engage. So LinkedIn is a great spot to connect, right? If the whole point is relational connection. So when we connect through LinkedIn, I could see your face. I can, kind of learn a little bit about your story. So definitely LinkedIn. If they want to check out my website, the easy way to get there instead of worrying about the spelling of my last name, you can go to christophersparks.com.
I like that.
And I would say those would be the main two places, but I would love to connect on LinkedIn and get a conversation going from there. If there's any way that I could be of service around stress, around energy, capacity, team building, for your people are my people, Matt. So I would love to hear
Absolutely.
from anybody that wants to.
There you go. And listeners, I'm going to put those links in the show notes. So you're only one click away from getting in touch with Chris and learning more about his amazing story and his amazing work. Chris, thanks so
Yeah.
much for being with us today. Really appreciate you sharing your expertise.
It's a live wire, Matt. It's my joy. Thank you.
Here are my well-traveled top 3 takeaways from today's episode. 1. Create space. Our organizations and relationships at work have the potential to be places where we go for healing and reinforcement. Making this a reality requires a new leadership approach. 2. Be present. When you're holding space with another person, do the little things that let them know you're fully present with them. Turn off the phones, face them, and be all about them in that moment. 3. Learn to love again. We don't use the L word often enough at work. When we care deeply about those around us, we don't have to make it awkward. We need to find our own way to let our love shine through. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Strong reviews help shows like mine get noticed. And be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss your next opportunity to learn, lead, and live at your best. Thanks for making this investment in your leadership ability, and thanks for sharing this podcast with another aspiring leader who needs to hear it. All right, leaders, until next time, don't just manage the business when you can lead the people.
I love that.
I wanted to be my freshest for our conversation right now.
I can tell you are. I love it.